For this final roundtable, this is a really kind of an overview table, right? So this is more of a, let's look at the industry, let's see what's good, what's not so good as a whole, and then we can really kind of dive into things that were talked about over the course of the day. So HK, let's start with you. Would you mind introducing yourself, where you work at and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Hello, everybody. HK Human Kashanipour. I like to say that I got the nickname 3 days onto my journey on the shop floor in an engine plant. Let's just leave it at that. So it was good. No, I work at Diesel Forward. We are independent aftermarket distributor of aftermarket parts. We do some remanufacturing, rebuild, but all focused on light, medium, and heavy-duty diesel products.
Well, and thank you to UHK for, I think you guys have almost taken part in every session today. You had a tech, you had Matt Hecox on the manager side, and then you for this industry overview. So appreciate your time and you being here today. It means a lot to us.
Thanks for having me.
Ray, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Ray Clark with Truck Country Training and Development. So I kind of oversee both our training centers here in Dubuque, Iowa, and we have another one for our Stoops family organization out in Indianapolis. And we give all our technician training throughout both the two training centers. And we even throw in some admin staff and support training off on the background also.
Yeah, pleasure to have you, Ray. It's good to see you again. It's been a few weeks since I was down to see you in Dubuque there, but top-notch organization, and excited to have you here.
Thank you. And
Jacob?
Jacob Findlay, founder and CEO of Fullbay. We are a shop management software platform, and happy to be here. I think Mark is also an accountant. I was looking at your LinkedIn, Mark, so I'm not so lonely. I'm a CPA by trade, but super happy to be in the industry for the past several years.
Jacob, it's funny because when I think we did our podcast together, we've done a lot of collaborative stuff together. And I was explaining the first time that I kind of was introducing Mark to you, I said, you guys have really, really similar backgrounds, and it's eerie. But Mark, I'll let you go ahead and.
Excellent choice, Jay.
Yeah, if things get too out of control, we can probably slow it down and bore everyone with some accounting talk. No, I'm Mark Wilson. Like as mentioned, I started as a CPA and then went more the software route. Started a couple companies and was fortunate enough to sell those. Been friends with Jay for a long time, so I work with him to run Find a Wrench and WrenchWay here. Help coordinate building a lot of software products we have coming out, and then work on the operations. So I'm newer to the industry, learning a lot. Hopefully I probably won't talk as much as the rest of you guys in this one, but I think sometimes it is good to have a different perspective, and sometimes it's easy to get in the weeds a little too much. And then I know that's happened a few times with Jay and I over the last year, where I'd say stuff that probably was a dumb question, honestly, and Jay's like, you know what? I never thought of it that way. I just took it for granted. So maybe we'll have some of that here today, or maybe I'll just have a lot of dumb comments too.
Well, I want to start with, we just wrapped up our trade school, tech school roundtable. And one, I thought that was excellent insight from those guys. We could have gone a long time with them, but I want to maybe pick your brains on if there's opportunities for us to better engage with tech schools. And when I say that, one of the things that came out of that roundtable was maybe a frustration that there's times where we depend on the school so much, yet don't do enough to maybe support them. HK, I'm going to start with you because Diesel Forward, there's always been a foundational aspect to that company to really interact and participate in everything a school does, whether it's, being on a advisory board or donating, whatever. Do you see enough companies like Diesel Forward, or do we need more kind of participation from the industry as a whole?
Well, I think it goes without saying is you're only going to get what you put into it. I mean, Jay, you know our organization well, and I got a couple managers and directors that came from the school. So it's interesting that there are times we talk about talent, but we don't realize that it starts all the way from the school, and it starts with internships, and that's how you build talent. Frankly, my own history, I'm fond of it. I was an intern on the shop floor for International, the Harvester, and then I ended up working for them. So I think when you say about engagement, I think the answer is absolutely. We can talk about tech shortages, we can talk about not having the resources, but we need to kind of step it up and work with these schools. And frankly, I think both sides win. So I've seen it as successful. We even need to do more of it, but it's absolutely something that we need to be part of.
Well, and I think that's why we're having this conversation, right? It's key industry players that have an influence and have the ability to hopefully try to get more of those seats filled, and really not just one school or another, but all of them. The more we can do that, the better we're going to be, the less stealing from each other we're going to have as far as techs. It really is building a solid core foundation for the industry. And Ray, you guys are a little bit unique with your role and what you do. You can probably speak the most direct to this, but you have your own training facilities. How does that work with your partnerships with tech schools? Because I know you have them, even though you do also have your own school. Yep. How do you see that role kind of evolving?
So just a larger partnership in general, because I mean, if you look at it, not one school or even our own training center can we produce enough technicians that all our dealerships need. So it's like you really need to expand on, just like HK said, I mean, I go into these schools as a partnership now, and they all know that we already have our own training center, but that we have to work hand in hand. So the good thing of that is they want to build that better relationship, because we've helped several of them out with newer training aids, with that newer state of the art technology to come into the school. And we also have that opportunity for possibly employment and placement of their students from there. So one of the biggest things that I prefer and really like to promote is that with Freightliner, they've got a get ahead program and a finish first program. So they are also in that school. And with us being kind of a sponsored partnership with community schools or tech schools, we're able to, I guess, even help them out even more. So like I said, I mean, we can't produce enough technicians to supply our shops. We're going to have to partnership with those schools. And again, HK said it, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you walk in there and you don't hear other dealerships knocking at their doors and stuff, trying to promote their names, it's going to be rough for those kids to come back out and really kind of look in your direction.
100% agree, and applaud what you guys do, Ray, because you still, even though you've got your own training facilities, you still supply, whether it's a training aid to a local tech school, you're still very involved with those local tech schools. And I think that's a big piece. Like you said, we at this point can't produce enough technicians, so we need to step that up. Jacob, with you, you kind of come from a different background. You spent time in a shop, so you're very familiar with the shop aspect of it. What do you think from the standpoint of both you and I have kind of, and Mark, you can chime in here too, but we have maybe non-traditional businesses to deal with schools. Have you seen any way to really engage with schools from the Fullbay side of things?
So we're getting our software in the hands of the schools so the technicians can interact with it. I think that helps, but I think especially in an era that we find ourselves in now with COVID, people are starting to realize more and more that everything doesn't have to happen in a brick and mortar location. Like my kids are still, half my kids, I have a bunch of them, half of them are still going remote, and it's actually doable. So I think that the partnerships need to exist there with the trade schools. Unfortunately, the trade schools are ratcheting down. Like in a time where we have like such a need for diesel technicians, you're seeing fewer trade schools out there than ever before. And so it's kind of, I think what's necessary is kind of a paradigm shift where, yes, you partner with the brick and mortar ones, but more and more of this training, needs to become democratized, kind of like university learning in general is. I think, you know, in 10, 20 years when we won't even recognize the university system, because people are eventually going to realize, like, why am I spending 40 grand a year on tuition for something I could learn online for free? So I think we have to think more about, you know, the value of doing things in a non-traditional way. Like if a 15-year-old wants to learn how to repair an engine, like my oldest son is so much better at this than I am. Like, I'm more of a finance guy, right? I want to be good, but he is naturally really good at it. And those guys, those kids that are naturally interested in this and then are getting pressured to get into kind of a traditional university education, what online resources can we provide to them as they're tinkering around as kids that it kind of becomes a funnel, like pulls them into the top of the funnel and brings them down. So I think there's some cool stuff going on, innovative stuff, like Tim over at American Diesel Training Centers, Tyler Diesel Laptops is doing some of this stuff. We're doing some in-service training, but I think there needs to be partnerships with the schools, and we also all need to think about what can we do to approach this in a non-traditional way and get people interested through free online tools. So that's
100% agree, Jacob, and I applaud that. I didn't know the part about you engaging some of the younger people with your software and even giving them the ability to tinker, right? And I think that's such an undervalued thing, because things have gotten so expensive and so, you know, it's impossible to get into anything without a computer right now, right? But even just to have a lawnmower to tinker with, or, you know, anything that you can really get mechanically exposed, like your son, I think really opens a lot of doors and really makes that educational side of it really attractive from maybe a tech school side. Mark, you've really kind of seen this firsthand with our interaction with schools, and one of the things that I thought was interesting out of the tech school roundtable was them talking about, Tom at the end of that said, the need for industry to help them recruit to fill their seats. We noticed, I know you and I have talked about this, but the need for high schools at a high school level to get involved with them to help support some of their programs. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in general, if anyone hasn't listened to Jay did an awesome podcast, I think it came out this Monday with a local school here in Wisconsin. It was eye-opening to me. You know, there's a lot of good information there of what they really need. This particular school is brand new, has a ton of funding, much probably better resources than I had growing up, or Jay, I know that you had, but they still struggle. And I think that kind of goes into what I was going to say with just shops and dealerships in general, where you don't always have to have grand gestures. We talk to a lot of shops that, you know, they're smaller, they can't afford to donate a ton of time, materials, resources, but it's not going to be one magic bullet solution that all of a sudden gets kids into the programs more. Every shop can do a little bit, whether it's a couple materials or maybe speaking once or twice a year to a high school class, or letting them come in and tour your facility. Things like that matter. If kind of an army of shops all together do that and everyone does their part, I think it can make a huge difference. But Jay, getting back to your question, at first, we're going to be doing a lot in early 2021 with schools. And we'll be starting with tech schools, but the more we've dug into it, there's an even bigger need at the high school level. So we'll be incorporating that as well. I'm not going to make this a commercial for WrenchWay or anything with that, but I think in summary, there's so much that can be done that you really just have to start. And it's okay to have one small thing, because that one small thing does make a difference for that school or that two kids that hear your message and listen to it or whatever. I think it's kind of foolish to think there's going to be some magic solution that all of a sudden every kid wants to go into the industry. But I think if everyone does their little part, together it can make a huge difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Yeah, I keep saying it, especially on this diesel panel, we work with some pretty cool stuff, right? Like with the technology on top of being able to work with, whether it's trucks or equipment, there's some big pieces of equipment that people can work on that they probably don't even know that they can, that really exposes them to some cool stuff. I want to talk about that pipeline and maybe dig into that a little bit more and talk about opportunities to bring in non-traditional people into the industry, right? And when I say that, we can talk about anything, but I think maybe minorities, maybe women, are there opportunities for us to better embrace non-traditional technician communities to get them into the industry? And HK, I'll start with you.
Well, my perspective is that anytime you have diversity of thought, you're just going to have a better company. You're going to have a better team. So is there an opportunity? I think if you don't want the same answer, we all better do it, you know. So and that's at the technician level. It can happen at a management level. So in general, I've personally have seen the impact of having different thoughts, the different thought leaders as part of a management team, and part of a staff. So I really think that anybody's out there who's building a company or building a team or building a shop, you're going to do yourself a lot of favors by making sure that the people on your team are diverse. And like I said, it could be from all walks of life. Diversity comes in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and it's funny, when we started Find a Wrench, I did not do this intentionally whatsoever, but I just always went from the point of like, I want to hire the best person. I don't care about like any of the other stuff. And we ended up with the majority, when I say majority, strong majority of women in the company. And it wasn't like I was like, oh, we need to hire women. It was just that they were really, really good, that they were very talented people. And I didn't look at it as like a box, but more of just, how do we get more talented people in? And that's the way I think we need to look at technicians too. And Jacob, maybe I'll let you talk to that a little bit. You see a lot of different types of shops across the US and really all over the place, but do you see opportunity there?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're looking at female participation, we already see a lot of females in the industry, but they're typically service writer or running the parts side. On the office side, there's a lot more than you would think. But it is, I mean, it's few and far between on the technician side. They exist, but I think that there's a great opportunity there to bring in more. In terms of minorities, I'm totally with you guys in terms, like, I mean, any form of discrimination is just so inefficient. Why would you do that to your business, right? Yeah. And if you have two people, if we're talking about ideas and kind of a leadership team, if you have two people that think exactly the same way on everything, then one of them isn't necessary. Like, you need diversity of thought, and you need, like, I'm constantly telling my team to challenge me, and I don't have all the answers. Tell me where I'm wrong. And to the extent that you hire people that are smarter than you, you're going to be hearing that a lot, and you need that. So yeah, don't discriminate. I mean, I think in 2020, that's a pretty safe rule to follow. I think it's going to keep you on the right side of the law, and it's also the right thing to do morally, and it's the right thing to do from a business perspective. So anything you can do to get people in the door, at the end of the day, they need to be the most qualified. I definitely believe that. I think reverse discrimination can hurt you. So don't be stupid, but definitely don't limit yourself. So.
Yeah, that's great insight, Jacob. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, just one thing. So in the past companies I've worked with, hiring software developers is really difficult. I mean, it's a growing field. So that same with, for different reasons, I think, but similar to the shortage with technicians. But there's also a ton of programs, Girls Who Code, things like that, that are aiming to attract more females into the industry. I see some of that here, but not nearly as much. So things like that could help. And then the other point, you gotta be careful how I say this, because you don't want to do it for the wrong reasons. But if you do participate in things like that, promote that. I mean, you should be talking about that on your Facebook page, your website, things like that. I guarantee it's not going to hurt your customer traffic coming in the door. It's probably going to help. It shouldn't be the reason you try to make change like that. But like I said, it will help. And there's other kind of valuable things you can get out of that other than the right thing to do. You know what I mean on that, where you're not doing it solely to get additional sales, but it can help with that too.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Mark. Not just check the box, but actually have, like, going back to what Jacob said too, just find the best people, regardless of what race, shape, color they are. Like, it does not matter. It's just getting the right people in the door. Ray, I don't know if you've got anything you'd like to add to that. I know you see all kinds of different, like, techs in terms of like what what the demographic is. Any insight there?
Yeah, I mean, we've got and had through the years several female technicians, and personally, what I like about them, and even when I was in the management side of it and had advisors, the detail that they pay attention to so much more, and a lot of people look at it differently, like, oh. But one of the things, and it's a little bit different than the diversity, is I really think outside the box when I go into schools and stuff, and as we talk about helping recruit and stuff, whether it's male, female, and I promote it that in any way, but I've used what I call the gamer type effect, and I kind of use it as a little bit of a recruiting type thing. And as we all know, the technology in today's truck is crazy to think about, and what some of these diagnostic techs put up on the screen in front of them. So what I do with some of the schools, and it could be 8th grade to seniors, and just ask, kind of who the gamer is. And then I start sharing a screen of what it looks like from a diagnostic standpoint. And all of a sudden it's like, man, these guys like kind of get it. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to always be that farm boy or that country boy or that grease guy that's always been tinkering on stuff. Is now, like I said, with the change of things and technology, that we need to, we need to look at females. We need to look at the people that may not be that typical, stereotypical, I'm going to be the wrench guy. So
that's a perfect way of putting it. I want to shift to more of the business side now and talk about understanding, trying to gauge if there is a gap between technicians understanding the business side of things and what management thinks. And when I say that, it's come up over the course of the last couple of days with this, but when a technician sees labor right here and they see their pay right here, and there's a gap there, do you think they're fully understanding what is going in that gap? And HK, you probably have the most experience with this, so I'll let you start with this.
Well, I'll relate it that any process where you don't understand what the metrics are, it's very difficult. And we can look at a bottom line in a shop and says, well, the shop's not doing well. Tell the good people to go work harder. It doesn't work that way. You don't. We have to understand what's driving those metrics. Are they spending an extra 4 hours chasing to look for parts? Or what are the types of things that lead your shop to a successful outcome? And part of that is really critical. And I have to say we are behind the 8 ball, but we've recognized this, and frankly, we're going to make an upgrade to our systems and our know how to figure this out. We need to let the technician know what the score of the game is, and it's not always at the end of the job. Okay, I know Jacob's shaking his head. I admire him. He doesn't know, but I've admired the Fullbay. I've looked at some of their webinars, but the reality of it is, if you can put KPIs, if you can put measures, like watching a football game, if you know what the score is, 99% of people want to achieve the right thing. The problem is we show somebody the end score and says, well, how'd you get there? Well, it doesn't work that way. So then literally you look at the big buckets, your pay was this, oh, we lost money, but we charged $110 an hour. So I think we have to all step back and, you know a little bit about us, Jay. We're a completely open book organization. I just got off a call with all our employees. We share everything. But partly we're trying to teach them, because then when we ask for something, you did this and it impacted this. So I think at a shop level, the best thing you can do for your business, the best thing we can do for our business, is make sure everybody understands what are the elements and what are the influencing points, and then talk about the rates and the pay and the profitability. Those are lagging indicators.
Yeah, I think HK, you hit it on the head, and that's where I got exposed to that at a really early age when I was with Diesel Forward, and that was kind of an eye opener to me. I think it really. I came from with my dad's shop where it was just they never shared anything about anything, right? Like, it's the checkbooks over here, you're out there, and when I went to Diesel Forward, it was a different, a different type of transparency, and it makes you feel a part of something bigger. And I think that's what the techs are craving. And Jacob, I'm going to go straight to you on this because I think HK should probably just be moderating this because he automatically like pushed it over to you. So talk to us a little bit about that real-time scoring, because that's something that you guys take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, and HK, thanks for the shout out. Thanks for watching some of our webinars. That's cool. Imagine playing the full football season and you don't find out the score of any of the games until the end of the season, right? Like, how motivating is that? Like, nobody really knows until it's all over. So yeah, I mean, we built a lot of tools that let the shop see what's going on in real time, and I think it makes a difference because people want to be part of a winning team, right? And they want to know what the score is, and there's kind of a intrinsic motivation is the best motivator out there. That being said, I think that you talked about the deltas, like the difference between what the techs are earning and what we're billing to the customers, and do they really understand the difference? I think a lot of them don't. To the extent that you can help them understand what your cost structure is as a shop, I think that helps them understand how the game is played. It can be a double-edged sword. Like, for example, we get a lot of pushback. Well, not a lot, but we do get pushback from sharing how to start a diesel repair shop, for example, right? Because owners are justifiably paranoid that their technicians are going to leave and become a competitor and maybe take some of the customers and all that. So sharing how the business runs and everything can come back to bite you a little bit, but I think it's worth it because not everybody's cut out to start their own business, right? This is one thing I've had to learn. Like, some people they want the security of a paycheck and they want to be part of an organization, and they don't want the stresses involved in that are real involved in being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So I think it's good to share, help them understand what's going on there. You're probably going to lose a few that go off and start their own thing, but I think the benefit more than outweighs the cost. And to the extent that you can maybe do some profit sharing or an efficiency bonus or something like that, where yes, intrinsic motivation is the best motivator. I firmly believe that, but money can also be a motivator in a lot of instances. So, and it can help everybody get rowing in the same direction in the shop, which is so important, where suddenly if you can get everybody aligned with, hey, we need to be billing as many hours as we can justifiably, right? And take care of the customers and satisfy the customers because we're all going to benefit, I think all the better. So I think the more you share, the better. Open the kimono, as it were, to the extent that you can, and help everybody understand how it works. I think it's worth the risk.
I'm going to go from one finance guy to another finance guy. Mark, anything you want to add there?
No, I think the guys hit it on the head. I mean, if you want people to be loyal, engaged, everything that every employer talks about wanting, you have to share the info. I mean, if you can't expect an employee to take pride in their company and to be loyal if they don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't need to go over everything that HK and Jacob went through very well, but to me, that one seems so obvious. And I think companies that don't do it are probably struggling in other areas as well. It's pretty obvious. I know it has to be said, but I think that one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and the transparency is such a key part of that, because if you're not transparent, I feel like there's some level of skepticism from the technician side that you're trying to hide something, or that they might see it as anywhere they can wander their imagination and say, hey, you're making all this money, as Jacob said, in that delta, where they don't understand that delta, they're just going to assume that you're taking that straight to the bank. And the more you can explain what that fat is in there, I think the better and more trust you get, right? I think that's the big part, is you want to build that trust. And by not doing that, not being transparent, I think it's really hard to build trust.
Yeah, people are going to always assume the worst. If you don't tell them the information and it's here and here, I guarantee they think a lot more of it's profit for the owner than is actually true. I just don't see why you wouldn't share. You don't have to share every income statement ever or show them your bank statement or anything, but you can give them a lot of information while still holding back some of the cards if that's your choice.
If I could, Jay, just piggyback on Mark's comment. I agree. There's certain informations you need to know. You don't have to tell them everything, but it's not a bad thing to have a technician walk into work in the morning and just kind of be shaking his head, thinking about how much the owner has to pay for insurance on this place, right? That's not a bad thing. And it's a good reality for everybody to be aware of.
I 100% agree. And Ray, I want to go to you on kind of maybe you can expand upon that, or what I would like to know too is the other side of that. You're working directly with technicians a lot, and do you see them craving more of or do they have an appetite for more of that financial knowledge?
They do actually, and it's what I was going to chime in and say that the Monday morning management huddles, in front of your team and your shop floor can't be just about your workload or your safety aspects for the week. It's got to be like, hey, what are we looking at for our goals for the month? To keep the doors open, to keep everybody rolling. So what I found out that we actually as a company have found out that we're building more leadership and coaching programs to take some of those lead techs, service advisors, and bringing them in and kind of coaching them and giving them not just the soft skills, but giving them a little bit of the business sense. One of the very first programs inside one of our modules in our tech program that we do, I go in kind of as a service manager and I give them the definition of ELR, effective labor rate and efficiency, and what it looks like and what it takes to, it's not just you turning the wrenches and making that hourly rate and the truck rolling in and out of the bay. There's so much more attached to it, from the service advisor. And like Jacob said, what's it cost just to put insurance up? You take a large look and scale of our company with 25 dealerships, and it's like at each and every one of those has to be productive to keep the doors open and stay on top the way we do.
I want to expand upon this a little bit more from the standpoint of, do you ever think, and Mark, I'm actually going to start with you on this one. Do you ever see a misconception or maybe a different viewpoint from how a tech sees a shop versus how a shop sees itself? And I think we talk about this from a financial aspect, but from a tech's perception of a shop. Sometimes do you see any inaccuracies between the two?
Absolutely. I mean, most of our business is recruiting, so we see this all the time. I think I made the comment when I was giving the overview of the new app we have coming out, but every shop we work with, they want in the recruiting we do for them to talk about how they're the best company ever to work for. And some are really good and some aren't. That happens so often that there's such a disconnect. I don't know the answer to that, but as with most things, just better communication is key. I'm sure a lot of the times the technicians either are afraid to bring it up or they know if they bring it up, nothing's going to change anyway. So they kind of just throw in the towel and really half-ass it a little bit. But I think that's far more common than people want to admit. And it's also, I think everyone knows that happens. They just think that happens at the shop down the street. They don't take an honest look in the mirror and say, is that happening in my location? But yeah, that is very common. And it's not unique to this industry either, but definitely happens all the time.
Yeah, just to chime in real quick and to that point, Mark, is I think what happens is it's that manager that lives in his office day to day and never gets out on the floor. It's good business, it's business as usual type scenario versus the guy that's out on the floor and getting a temperature of what his techs truly feel and think what's going on and building that relationship. But again, back to everybody's comment, it's just the communication and staying open about it.
HK?
Well, it goes back to our previous discussion. When if everybody and if all the techs, they think they're busy, and they say, well, if I'm busy, it's good. Well, short of showing them what's good or not bad, or you winning the game, not winning, then you don't have something that they can continuously improve on. And it goes back the way you do that. You get on the shop floor, you show them the right metric, you get them involved. So could there be a disconnect? In every department, there can be a disconnect, especially if you don't if you don't, because people truly, they're just going to say, hey, I came in, work 8 or 10 hours, everything must be great. How would I know?
Yeah. Jacob, you see all kinds of different shops. I mean, do you maybe see some reflection of that? Sorry, of really kind of how a tech perceives a shop versus how a shop perceives a shop?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the bell curve applies, right? To technicians, you got a whole wide range, but there's definitely technicians who they don't understand, and they're never going to understand, how their wage fits into the overall shop schema. And you need as many qualified technicians as you can. So there's not going to be a one size fits all approach to this, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, the guys that split off and kind of do their own one-man mobile show that were previously with the shop, they definitely get it. But also, I really like what I think Ray was saying, where just because you teach business principles to the technicians doesn't mean they're going to leave. It just means that as you grow as an organization, they can move up and they can continue to contribute. So they're not a monolithic group, so I can't really speak to all the technicians. There's a wide range, but I think in the end, there is a good way to approach this, from a transparency perspective. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jay.
It does. Yeah. No, that's perfect. So I want to talk a little bit more about that transition, right? You just mentioned the possibility of a technician and their career path moving forward. One thing that I notice is oftentimes we will promote a really good, technically sound person into a management position and maybe not look at the soft skills as much. Ray, I'll ask you this. Do you see anything changing there as far as maybe starting to look more at leadership qualities on top of the technical skill? In the tech roundtable this morning, they talked about how it was honestly a little bit more, there was more emphasis on it than I would have thought, where they want to see somebody with technical skill at the front, leading the front office. Do you see that, looking at that, there's value in looking at kind of leadership skills and promoting somebody from a technician role up?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I kind of use myself as a little bit of an example, is because I grew up with a family business. So I kind of had an advantage point of kind of knowing and learning business as I come through, but been in Freightliner dealerships for like over 14 years. And I've seen multiple promotions, some good, some bad. And that's where, I guess I try to teach and coach not only to out here, but even, at my own house. My son's 15. It's like, lead, don't follow. Don't be that kid that follows everybody and stuff. So, and it is like, I think Jacob hit it, is some techs just are going to be techs and they're never going to get it and they don't understand. And they can be somewhat of a leader out on the floor. I'm not certain that they can always be that manager in the office to do it both. But I was listening to that the other day, and it was pretty cool to hear that a lot of the technicians preferred the technical aspect, because exactly, I think it was Josh or a couple of them said that when you get a job that goes south and that manager's coming out and he's beating up on you, and it's like, okay, some of those guys that look at it in the business perspective don't understand that one broken bolt can happen in about 3 seconds, and it can be about 3 hours to make that difference and get that bolt back out. So it's like the managers with the technical skills can probably manage the shop as long as they've got a decent management background and a little bit of a leadership and understand those aspects. So it is good to, and definitely to promote from within, because if you can take that guy and he shows those leadership skills and he can get the team behind him, we've all seen it. There's that one senior tech on the floor, and he can almost make or break your day in one conversation walking through the shop, because everybody will listen to that one guy. So it's the right choice as far as when it comes to that time and carefully choosing him. But yeah, it was cool to hear that they like that technical background in managers. They've seen it worse happening with the business aspect.
I agree, Ray. I thought that was really cool to see. HK, what happens when there's maybe an individual that shows interest in management, and when I say an individual, a technician that shows interest in management, but might not have the skill set or personality that you need in order to move up? But say they're a great person, they're a great employee. How does that conversation go with you to understand if they have the elements to become a manager, or even if they, maybe their skill set wouldn't even, maybe they just hate being a manager, right? And they just don't know it yet. Have you had those conversations with people before?
Sure, and I think maybe to frame this, we as an organization, I think about 12 months ago, I did a check, and 7 of our top talent in the company all started either from the drive-in shop or fuel shop. And this actually came up because I remember because there was somebody from the shop that applied, and we're lucky enough we get a couple hundred phone calls a day on technical service on engines, and so we have a tech department, we have a customer service department, and we thought the best person to take this was somebody from the shop. I remember the shop manager says, "Well, you can't have my people." I looked at him, I said, "You are the best recruiting ground. We're going to keep taking, and you keep replacing." But I was also we put ourselves in the shoe of that tech, because some people they want to be tech for a long time. Great. You want to go to customer service? Great. You want to go to technical? Great. I got people leading national account sales. I got a person that's leading the national account on technical. So I think especially with the new generation coming up, if you pigeonhole your people and don't give them the chance to grow, you're just going to have turnover. Now, not everybody can go to the next step, or not everybody's going to go from being in the shop and being a manager. Okay, so I think as leaders, we have to give them, I don't care if you're a small shop or a bigger company, give them experiences, and then understand the gaps that they have. If it's leading other people, if it's teamwork. And listen, teamwork's totally changed in the last 20 years. Nobody's pounding the desk anymore telling you what to do. You have to bring people along, and that includes in the shop floor. So how do we address this is, understand the gap and provide the coaching and the training for them. But, man, you got to leave the door open for those technicians to go other places in your organization.
Agreed. Jacob, it looked like you wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that. There's a company near us here in Phoenix, Discount Tire Company. Their headquarters are here. And in a past life, I did a lot of work with them on their corporate side. One of the things that they do is they promote heavily from within. And there's so many benefits to that. One of them being that, even the executives that I worked with at the headquarters, most of them started changing tires, right? So they get the business from the ground up. But the other benefit is it's actually so much easier to recruit people to work in the shops. You get a lot higher quality applicant because everyone knows that Discount Tire promotes from within, and the sky's the limit, basically. And that's how you get in. You start at the retail shop. So suddenly it just cracks open the number of people that you can bring in the door if you make it clear, like, look, you start as a tech and you can move all the way up, pick your interests. We'd love to have you stay in the organization, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, totally separate, Jay, my team was feeding us some data on women, and we have a State of the Heavy Duty Industry report coming out pretty soon. And one of the things that we saw was it's 27% of the people in the commercial repair industry are women, but less than 1% of technicians are women.
Wow. That's good to know. One, I look forward to that report, but then two, that's kind of a crazy stat. Yeah.
Imagine if we could get it 50-50. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there's a tech shortage.
Even 10% or 15 would be huge. I mean,
you get 10 times what you have right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey,
Ray, you guys. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
Just to really mirror what they were talking about, coming from the floor up. For me, it's really cool because here at the training center, I've got 3 great instructors and they literally all came off the floor. You had Josh on your roundtable as a technician who spent 16 to 20 plus years, and now he's a fleet trainer. So he's on the road training some of our large fleet customers and stuff. Same thing, but there's so much that we've done really good from inside that I think for the promotion side of it. I mean, we've got a general manager that started out in the wash bay, for an example, and it was just leading by example a little bit there and pushing his way up through.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the kind of conversation. A lot can be solved with just quick one-on-one meetings every once in a while. I mean, one of the things I've been surprised about the last couple of days, and this piggybacks on some other data we've seen recently, so maybe I just noticed it more, but the lack of kind of laying out a career plan or development, the companies that do that seem to be doing really well. But on the technician side, I think that's missing. And you're not going to know for sure the next 20 years or really even 5 years, but just having that quick one-on-one conversation to figure out where do you want to be in a year, that might change. In 6 months, you have another conversation and it might be totally different, but it helps for so many reasons to let that technician know what's possible, to be honest with them and tell them, that might not be the best for you, or here's the skills you got to work on a lot between now and then. You can't lie to them. I think especially I hate when people lump things into millennials and things like that. But realistically, I think a lot of younger people do now expect things to happen in 6 months that really are probably going to take 6 years. So honesty. But I just think so much could be solved, and I'm guilty of this myself, just having a little more frequent one-on-one meetings, even if they only last 15 minutes. But I think you'd uncover a lot, and the techs would be a lot more appreciative of that. And it seems like the shops that we work with that have no problem recruiting do that really well.
Yeah, Mark, just a biannual as a service manager, asking those questions. So, what's your future look like for you, bringing that up?
I was on mute. I would encourage those of you that haven't been able to listen to the automotive side that we did yesterday to listen to it, because they had a ton of great insight on, especially their manager roundtable, on different ways to lay out that career path and really promote that. And not that we don't do a good job of it, because with Ray and HK here, there are two organizations that I'm very familiar with that are probably industry leaders in promoting from within. And they just had some different ideas. And I think it was kind of cool to kind of just see both sides with automotive yesterday and diesel today, and maybe some of the stuff that we can take from each other to try and help build the industry in general. So as you guys are talking about this, I'm like, man, we should do an automotive and diesel one together at some point to get those ideas flowing, because there is some synergy there. And I think there's some cool stuff that could come out of that. All right. Anything else anybody wants to add there? And the one thing I will say is we're about 13 minutes off of our time. If somebody has a question that's from the audience, we can surely answer it. But a couple more things to talk about in regard to the diesel business. What do you see for, it was something that I asked with the technician panel, but as technology evolves, how difficult is a technician's job becoming? And when I say that, I know it's kind of a rhetorical question, because it's obviously crazy how much how much a technician has to learn. But the importance of training was evident on that technician roundtable, and how much they want that training. And Ray, I'm going to start with you, just because that's your life. How do you keep up with it from a technician standpoint?
So funny to feedback. So I was a service manager 2 years ago, and that was one of the first things that the VP prompted me with, was to increase our tech program as far as our skill set that we try to do, and bring up how can we get a second class going. So we have two programs. One is our apprenticeship program, and the second one is kind of our traditional path of training. But the program side of it was like, okay, so we want to start 2 groups of 10 each year just to stay up with it, like you said, and bring it in. The funny part of it is, not so funny, is that the instructors themselves somewhat struggle at times just to stay up with it, to be able to put it back in the ears, eyes, and hands of our technicians. So, and most of us buy a phone, and we know that by the time we walk out the door, it's outdated already, it seems like. And I have seen a huge change in technology. Is that, when you were here a couple of weeks ago and I showed you what it's doing and stuff, and here we're already talking about a new common architecture. Western Star came out with a new truck, and they're merging that architecture, electrical architecture, into it and stuff. So it's getting the new generation, which is very technically savvy anyways, but getting them interested in our industry. Lately, on a lot of the recruiting tables that I've sat in on, it's like, just get me a body that wants to work. We'll train you the skill set. And that's what I like, with our company. We've got the capability of giving that technical skill set and training on it. But again, I think everybody can probably feel that same pain, is give us some bodies that actually want to be here for work, and give us at least a minimal of a 40-hour week if they can.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back. I think anybody that reads a lot sees a common theme of hire for attitude and aptitude and train for skill. And I think that's becoming more apparent with our industry, where, you can train some of that skill as long as they have the willingness and the openness to do that. And hopefully we're able to do that. And I think that kind of plays along with everything that we're talking about. HK, do you have concerns over how fast technology is moving and the ability of the techs to keep up?
Yeah, I think in general, the diesel engines sound simple, but they are already complicated. Tight tolerances, electronics. So yeah, I think anybody's ability to diagnose and not just flip parts and downtime is now so critical, especially as the vehicle classes go higher and higher. So nobody wants a comeback. So yeah, absolutely have concerns. That's why tools are important, and I think education and training. I mean, I agree that willingness is the #1 goal, but that people have to have some basics. And this goes all the way back to our high school discussion. Basic math skills, basic mechanical aptitude. This is really important to have, to make sure as we give these sophisticated tools to people, they know how to use them.
Yeah. Jacob, do you any insight there?
Yeah, well, to your original question, is it going to become harder or easier to be a technician? I spent some time yesterday with an executive from Toyota. They're doing a thing with PACCAR and hydrogen fuel cells and so forth. I think the fewer the parts there are to repair, the easier it gets. But the reality is that even with the advent of electric and fuel cell and so forth, it's not going to mean that everything is switched over. So you're actually going to have this mix of this new technology with the traditional diesel for decades to come, potentially. So I think if anything, it's just getting more complex, and there's no getting away from that.
Well, in HK, I go back to my time in the early 2000s at Diesel Forward, and I remember Bosch bringing in like a common rail Dodge Ram pickup, and how like earth-shattering that was. And now you look back and you're like, man, it's come a long way. I mean, there is so much that's gone into it. And Ray, I told you too when I was down there, I have zero clue when I'm walking up to any type of truck what I'm looking at anymore. I mean, it is evolving fast.
Big time.
Doesn't seem like that long ago. It just tells me that I'm getting old. All right. Any parting words? We're kind of closing out shop here on our last session of TechMission. One, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out and doing this. And again, it's really starting the conversation. There's a lot of stuff that we have to solve yet, but I think this goes a long way in starting the conversation. So anybody have anything they'd like to add in terms of the general discussion today, general overview of the industry? I'm going to open up the floor to you guys. Well,
Jay, I would say, I'm an admirer, and we're a big sport. I really appreciate what you're doing. Starting a business to tackle this problem from ground zero with a different lens. You're using technology to address this. So I think you can be an inspiration for a lot of people. So thank you for what you do.
That means a lot, HK. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Ray, anything you want to you have to?
I mean, the biggest thing, like I said, a little bit of a side on the recruitment. I think it was funny. A couple of years ago, I literally was in a school in Wisconsin and recruiting, in a sense, to sixth graders. And I think Mark was talking about it. When they told us, well, yeah, we'd really like you to come in and talk to our sixth graders. And my VP was like, wow, are we gonna? I mean, do you really do that at a young age like that? And I'm like, you would be surprised the outcome that we walked away from. So. The lack of high school tech type programs anymore is probably in the new generation. Like I said, you look at it now, and most parents, both of them work. They don't have time to do their own oil changes, where in the old days it was weekends and you were doing the oil change with your dad, out in the garage on Ram jack stands now. And I mean, you think about that, how often does that happen anymore? So like we've all said, with the technology change, the generational gap between mechanical aptitude and what they used to do at home with their parents, we really got to think outside the box and put the bug in everybody's ear. And it is starting in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Is it just a show and tell? Is it a, hey, welcome to truck country or diesel, and just come through and see the shop, see what it's like? And who knows, 1 out of 10, it might spark their interest and say, hey, I want to look into that a little more.
We still haven't caught up to college football yet. For any college football fans out there, I think, didn't Lane Kiffin offer a scholarship to a fifth grader at one point? So we're not that far back yet. No. Jacob, anything for you? I mean, thank you again. It's similar to what HK said about me. You're doing a lot of very innovative things with Fullbay. I'm an admirer of you as well, and would love to get any last words from you here.
Thank you. Well, I guess to continue the football analogy, and I guess the arc back from HK's original introduction of the football concept, you don't win football games by chucking Hail Marys on every play, right? You win it by blocking and tackling, right? And grinding it out. And I think the solution to the technician shortage is not chucking Hail Marys. It's doing basic tactical things like you guys are doing, Jay and Mark. And there's others, like I mentioned, Tim, American Diesel Training Centers, Tyler Diesel Laptops. There's others out there doing basic tactical things that are practical and that will make a difference. And that's what it takes. So you guys are the blocking and tackling, and I think that's the solution. I'm totally behind you guys. Anything we can do to help, I'm happy to do.
Appreciate it. It's been fun to have a partnership with you guys. You guys have been amazing to us, so I really appreciate that. Mark, I'll let you finish things out.
Yeah, Jacob kind of stole my thunder there. I was going to make a similar comment, but I mean, we're attempting to tackle, and I think everyone on here in all the sessions agrees, it's almost looked at like a mountain to climb. There's a huge shortage already. It's getting worse. You can either look at that as so intimidating that I'm never going to fix it, so I'm not even going to try, or you can start chipping away at it. And like Jacob said, instead of Hail Marys, to fix it all at once. I mean, Jay, I posted a long rant on our Slack channel last night about taking the first step. You don't have to get there overnight, but we did something that we can't really share yet, but will be exciting to talk about here, that happened earlier this week. And it's so prideful to have things like that happen in the grand scheme of things. It's one small step, 2 small steps, whatever it is, but it's so meaningful to, in this case, that one school we're helping, the maybe 20 students it'll help. The problem is so much bigger than that, but if you're just intimidated by it, we're going to be talking about this 5 years from now. And I think if everyone kind of takes those little steps, I think it'll be amazing what everyone can accomplish in the next couple of years with taking that incremental approach.
Yeah, same here. And that's where I think it was so cool with all the talented people we had on our panels over the past couple of days. And this last one is no different. I admire all of you. You're very important to this industry. And I think as we, this is just the start of a conversation, right? And hopefully we keep this conversation going and we keep talking about ways that we can improve the industry and really drive it to be a place that really appreciates techs, treats them fair, treats them good. And really, I think that's the foundation for bringing more in and hopefully solving this broader issue that we've got. So thank you to everybody for the past couple of days. I know we've had a couple of participants that actually sat all the way through both days, which is insanely incredible. That's really good. I think they will notice in our media room back here that I'm in, there's literally zero airflow. So I'm pretty much a different shade of red than I was when I started this morning. So it's very hot back here. I'm not going to be opposed to getting out of this room. I can tell you that.
Thanks, Jay, for the offer. I appreciate you with the invite. And honestly, I feel kind of honored myself to sit in a panel with you guys.
Ray, I want to get that invite to come down that Jay got a few weeks ago. I want to check that out at some point if I can blurt that out quick.
Doors open anytime.
All right.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks everybody.
Take care, guys.
See you guys.